Welcome to the Armchair Trader podcast. This month we have on with us Peter Watson of Watson's Daily TV, and also with me here is Michael Morton, my colleague in arms who helps me with the day-to-day running of the website.
What was the gap there for, Stuart?
Hopefully it'll be edited out.
Well, that's an intro.
He helps me with...
Graham sitting there with his head in his hands.
One thing I know sounds minor, but I think is a real major thing is this whole, in today's Watson's Daily is about Impossible Foods signing a deal with Burger King. I mean, that's massive for, the vegan thing. You've got various other manufacturers. So you've got Impossible Foods, you've got Beyond Meats, you've got Memphis Meats. All these things, they're all really kind of ramping up, and Beyond Meat is going to IPO in the next few months as well. And you bring in the old Greg's vegan sausage roll and stuff into that chat as well.
Maybe the takeaway nugget, because we talked about
quite literally takeaway, isn't it?
Yeah.
Takeaway nugget.
Yes. Yeah.
I love we're losing all this good stuff.
Are you recorded by these hours? It's in there. Beautiful.
You're listening to the Armchair Trader podcast for active investors and traders in financial markets worldwide. Peter, I know you've been talking about vegan food for quite some time in your column, because you were mentioning vegan burgers even 2 or 3 months ago.
That's right.
Do you think, and it's something I've noticed myself a lot because I live in Brighton, and Brighton's quite heavily into vegetarian food. Do you think that this is a real sort of undercurrent in the UK retail market in terms of people's consuming habits? Or do you think it's just being hyped?
No, I think it's huge. I mean, I am, as you can see, although people on the podcast can't see, I'm an avid meat eater. But I would say that I was converted. I mean, no one's paying me from any of these companies to say this. I actually went to a local place around here to try this vegan burger, and I was absolutely astounded in terms of how meat-like it was. I thought if I'd have gone somewhere to some kind of pop-up stall and gone to have a burger, walked away and eaten it, I really would not have known that was not meat. And
I should throw in there at this point, obviously it was all videoed as well. So,
that's right, it was videoed.
You can find it on YouTube.
That's right, you can see it. You can see my facial expression as I bite in and wonder at the fact that it's even pink on the inside. Slightly, of course, yeah. But no, it's absolutely amazing. I do not think it's a hype. I do not think it's hype. I mean, the fact that actually you've got farmers up in arms, saying that you can't. They're talking about you can't call things cheese if it's not this certain way. You can't call a burger if it's not made from this. All that kind of stuff. I think it shows that actually the farmers, the meat industry, they're all getting very scared about it. And actually, I've forgotten the name. It's a huge company in the States. They actually have got big. I was going to say big stakes. In some of these in some of these companies that have meat substitutes, because they can see that is going to be something that's quite popular.
And do you think from the company, in terms of investing in companies in this space, is it, from an investor's point of view, is it just a case of it's going to help their bottom line, or do you think it's going to be a case of new challenges emerging in the UK high street? Because at the end of the day, guys like Greg's are going to have their vegetarian sausage rolls on offer. But if I'm an investor in Greg's, that's great for me. It just shows that Greg's is reacting to the market. Yeah. But do you think that there might be, from an investor's point of view, new companies that are coming up that will be able to capture this?
Oh, absolutely. I think that Beyond Meat is the one that's already applied to do an IPO. So I would imagine that's going to come up in the next few months. I mean, there's already a US IPO bonanza going on at the moment. and that's expected to continue. And I really would have thought that a lot of these meat substitute companies are going to become more and more popular, because everyone wants a piece of the action. They see it as something that's good for the environment, and it's good for your health. I mean, that's got to be popular, hasn't it? And then lots of people want to put their names to something like that. I mean, Bill Gates, I think, was one of the big investors in. I think it was Impossible Foods, I believe. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of big investors in there. So I think that it's not just hype. I think it's real, and I think that these IPOs are going to be popular, and then after that, I think, I won't say sky's the limit. Is maybe putting too much on it, but I do think it's a new thing. People are open to it, and the fact that it tastes like meat and they put it in the supermarkets next to meat.
Yeah.
The fact that I could have that on the one hand. I could have meat on the one hand, or I could have the healthier, protein source that doesn't have as much fat and all this kind of thing. I'll get that, for one meal. And if everyone does that, I mean, the sales are going to be absolutely massive.
I think the key thing at the moment, the burgers, we've seen them in the supermarkets and things. They're premium price, aren't they? But
the vegetarian burgers?
Yeah, the vegan burgers.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, as more and more people start to adopt this lifestyle, and even casual vegans, there is a word for it. I can't think what it is off.
A casual vegan.
A casual vegan. Or maybe I just made it up. I don't know.
Be curious.
Be curious. Yeah, I like that. Yes, it's good.
So as more and more people adopt, and it becomes cheaper to manufacture, cheaper to produce, cheaper to distribute, then it will become more and more mainstream. And that's got to be a beneficial thing for the manufacturers, for the suppliers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the ones who are more exposed to plant-based protein are the ones that are going to win. I mean, I think it's Memphis Meats that actually grows the meat. So it takes a few cells and then it grows the meat. I think people are going to find that's just too much of a step. And that's too much, the GMO thing and crops and things. I think that they all find that a step too far, and especially if there is a plant-based alternative that is good. So
it sounds more natural, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Peter, you've been keeping a close eye on the UK high street. That's something we've been writing about on the Armchair Trader website quite a bit as well. There seem to be lots of different conflicting opinions on what's happening in the UK high street, because on the one side there's a lot of negative chatter going on about how it's doomed, and because how bricks and mortar chains have to compete against digital offerings. But on the other hand, you've got guys snapping up a lot of these big brands at a discount price, and presumably with some scheme to turn them around. You've done quite a lot of work on this already. What's your, as we sit here today, what's your take on the UK high street? Is it doomed?
Well, the way things are going, I would say that we might have to sort of retire the term the high street and call it Ashley Avenue, because I think that he pretty much is buying anything that seems to be going down the pan, including things like LK Bennett, and was it even Patisserie Valerie, wasn't it? He was in that as well, or he tried to. He's just buying everything he can, which is interesting, because I think that obviously there is still value to be had in a lot of these brands, but I just think that they just have to change. That's all. I think the high street is changing. I think it's not a disaster, and I don't think it's going to die per se. I think it has to change in order not to die. But there are many ways that it can change. I just think that a lot of the shops may have to be repurposed, for instance.
Do you think it's just, I mean, if you imagine the UK high street as a monopoly board, has he basically just been going around buying one of each colour
Yeah.
and then waiting for when whoever it is has the other
This-
2 properties to run out of money, and then he just picks up a lot at a.
This is it, isn't it?
discount
Is Mike Ashley looking at brands, or is he buying real estate?
I think I would have thought it's a bit of both, because actually, maybe cynically looking at it, you could say that he's buying the brands, but he's hedging his bets by the fact, well, okay, if the brands don't work out, I can just sell the real estate. Although you could then say, well, you know, who's going to buy the real estate? But if I would say that for him, it's quite low risk. As long as he can pay for it in the first place, I would have thought it's low risk, because he's just buying these things at bargain basement prices, isn't he, really?
Well, I mean, the prices for Debenhams, for example, it looks incredible. I mean, you'd imagine that the value of the buildings and the real estate probably surpasses or is close to the price that he's looking at paying for it at the moment, which is incredible.
But I think that, you know, department stores generally are just a complete disaster anyway. I mean, the whole thing is you're supposed to have this wonderful retail experience by going to a department store, but I really feel that it's not that special. You know, maybe it's quite nice surroundings, but you're not really getting anything extra. It's not like, so, I mean, I used to live in Japan, and, you know, you go to a Japanese department store and it's kind of like a theatre almost. You go in, you know, you'll go to, say, the food part of it, and you'll be getting free samples and tasting all sorts of stuff, and it's fantastic. I mean, I have to confess, you know, when I was a student, I used to go there for free lunches. You know, unofficial free lunches, obviously. You know, you pretend I was an interested foreigner trying different things, and it was great. But you know, and then you know, even things like if you were buying something, they would say, "Would you like it gift wrapped?" And you would say yes, even if it wasn't, because the way they wrapped these things, you wouldn't believe.
It's an experience.
It's absolutely amazing. Yeah. You're actually getting something, you know, for going into a department store. But even then, in Japan, they're all suffering as well. So I just think, as an actual model itself, in terms of a shop, I just feel that, you know, department stores have had their day, and they need to change, or they need to adapt in order to survive in the, you know, the way that the modern consumer is consuming.
I think it's interesting. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but you know, we have the odd family trip to IKEA, which, I mean, they seem to have got it right. They seem to be able to attract people from miles around. And obviously, when you've got the meatballs and the hot dogs,
there you go. All the horse dogs.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, that was a few years ago now. That's a bit old. Yeah.
All other brands are available.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's you know, is that the model?
Yeah, but you see, even IKEA or IKEA, depending on how you want to say it, is. I think they are doing some really interesting stuff at the moment now. I mean, they are looking to change that whole big box out of town retailer model, where you go in and you try and find your way out. You go in one end and you try and find your way out at the other. And you know, they're changing that now, and they're looking, and they've said, you know, that over the next few years they are going to, you know, the profits are going to take a hit. Because they're going to be investing in lots of different new formats, so town centre formats, lots of different maybe specialist bits. Okay, they're also starting to sell their stuff on Amazon, which they never did before. Yeah. So they're trying so many different things. I mean, I just think they've obviously got, you know, they've got a bit of cash. I think it'd be fair to say, and I think that the fact that they are really trying to do something now, while things are going very well for them, I think is excellent. And I think that, you know, by trying lots of these different things while things are going well, I think that they will be able to end up with really a robust model. You know, rather than just trying one thing in desperation because everything's going, you know, down the pan, they are going to be saying, well, actually, we've tried this, and actually we find that elements of each of those work, and therefore we're going to put them together, and then we are going to roll out this model. And I think that, so at the moment they're kind of in the active testing phase, it seems to me. So I think that I think what they are going to be doing is very interesting.
Yeah. It sounds a little bit like what Amazon are doing with obviously moving from online to real stores.
Yeah.
And testing the marketplace.
They are with those various things. I mean, in a way, actually, they're going the other way, aren't they? I mean, they've started as an online retailer, and then they're shifting towards physical stores. Yeah. But clearly, even the fact that they're doing that would suggest that there is still an intrinsic value in having a physical store. It's just that it's what format does that take? So either you've got your Amazon Go, where you go in and pretend you're shoplifting. And, I mean, that must be quite exciting, mustn't it? I mean, you should just go in and think, well, I can't possibly do that. Oh, but I can, because I'm not actually breaking the law, but it feels like I am, So yeah, you can do a bit of sort of pseudo shoplifting. But I think that, I mean, they're trying lots of different things. I mean, there's I think I think they call it a 4-star store, where everything they sell in the store has got to have a rating of at least 4 stars.
Oh, from the website.
Yeah, which is interesting because again that changes.
Is it quite eclectic, the mix?
I would have thought so. Yeah. I would have thought so. Yeah, I mean, because exactly. But then the other interesting thing about them is they're changing it according. So it's not. It's. I think they're trying to do it in terms of the actual area they're in, and how people in that area are rating. So it is. It's not. So one store does not sell the same as another one, and so things like that. Like I say, it's a physical store, so it's relevant. It's just that they've used their online retail knowledge and data, which is obviously another big thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
In order to provide something that they feel has a value to the customer.
Yeah, I guess if you're looking at climate or something like that, in the US you've got pretty disparate climates across the country. That changes purchase behaviour, doesn't it?
That's right.
Clothing, food.
Less ice cream in Alaska.
Absolutely.
And maybe more
There's
curry.
A joke there,
yes, right, exactly. And more curry. Anyway, but anyway, I think yes. The fact is, I do think yes. There will still be physical stores, but they'll either have to be existing ones will either have to be repurposed, or they will just be replaced by new ones.
They've got to change with the times, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Peter, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your about Watson's Daily TV, what it does? And
thank you very much, Stuart. I shall. Yeah. So what I do on a daily basis is I write a newsletter, business news / financial markets newsletter, and I make a very short video. Mainly based on one or two of the stories in Watson's Daily, but sometimes I will adapt the content because something might have come up since I published the newsletter.
So Watson's Daily is a roundup of what's going on in what's being published in the main UK newspaper.
Yes, it's a summary of the summary.
So what time do you have to get up in the morning to start that then, Peter?
4 a.m. Which is not natural. I do not find that natural, and certainly it means that by the time Friday comes around, my ideal Friday night is bed by 9. So things have changed a bit probably in the last few years. But I think I'm sure it makes me a better person.
Absolutely,
yeah.
It does.
And what sort of time of day does Watson's Daily TV come out? If someone wants to get
okay. So Watson's Daily, the newsletter comes out around 8:30, and then probably the video. It depends what I've got on the day, but maybe about an hour or so later. Maybe a bit late, but certainly by lunchtime. So yeah.
So you're there reading the newspapers in the dark so that no one else...
That's right. I am alone in the dark, trying not to wake everyone in the house. Mainly the thing is I've got to make sure I don't wake the dog up. That's the priority, because if the dog wakes up, then the dog wakes my wife up, and then the children get up, and it's all sort of pandemonium at 4:30, which isn't great. So I've got to tiptoe around.
So you're doing a public service, basically, aren't you? By going through all the papers.
That's right. I
I
just think that there's so much out there, and it's difficult to know where to start. And I choose the stories in quite a logical manner. I read the FT, the Times, the Telegraph, the Guardian, the Wall Street Journal. I look at what are the main stories that they're all talking about. And I really pick things out that are either have a big impact on the industry, or on the company itself, or maybe a geography, or just actually stories that are about companies that everyone knows about. And it's important to know something. So yeah, I mean, it's not just a case of having a dartboard with the stories and just throwing the darts. It's actually, I really look at what are the main stories, what is everyone talking about, and ideally, the different points of view that are in there. But I put my point of view across as well, so I make it clear. So this is what the Times says, this is what the Guardian says, but I say this, and I try to do it in an accessible way.
You mentioned that you focus on these more well-known names. I mean, this is something that we've noticed in the Armchair Trader as well, is that traders and investors seem to lean towards the companies that they already know, or the brands that they already know.
Yes.
And that frequently the action in some of the less well-known companies tends to be more institutional, so it tends to be more the fund managers and the pros, because you do have some big companies out there which they're not what I would call high street names, but they are big businesses.
Yes.
We've done that piece recently on the site about a business active, I think it's Wood Group, that's active in the North Sea oil, gas and energy services sector, which is very big, very important, a lot of strategic value, not a lot of retail interest in its shares, because you don't see Wood Group on the UK high street. Yeah. Is that something that you think still the investors should be looking at more than just the names they know, and should be shopping around more?
I always think that you want to know the big stuff as a base, because I think it's important, because that is what drives the rest of the market. I think that the big companies drive the market, and the smaller companies tend to follow. So I think as a starter, you need to know what's going on at the big companies. Once you get comfortable with that, I think that then it is you can then taking the oil companies drilling down.
Drilling down to the oil
so sorry about that. So I'm trying to get drilling down into lower down, and then you can really find some value. I think. I mean, the classic thing, for instance, is in days of yore, when people used to get really excited about Apple bringing out the next phone, for instance, one of the things that people often used to do was to get an iPhone, so a bank, usually a bank, because it's quite expensive obviously, buy a new iPhone and take the thing apart, and then look at every single component. Who makes this? Who makes what? This sensor, that sensor, all those kinds of things, and that's how you then find the money, because everyone knows Apple's going to come out with a new phone. So you're like, the first people go, okay, let's buy into Apple. But then you have maybe the people that are a bit more au fait looking at, say, Samsung's sensors or Sony's sensors or whatever it is, or the lenses or something like that in the camera. And then you're going down and down and down, because that the big, Apple is going to drag everything up with it. It's just a question of how quickly. So I think that yes, it's important to know the big stuff, and then once you've got that okay, then I think you can then look at the smaller and related stuff.
Michael.
And I think that you get that across really well every morning.
Thank you.
With your updates. But obviously you don't do it for free. You need to be supported.
That's right.
In this. So
that's right.
What do listeners need to do to get these nuggets of information every morning?
Well, Michael, I'm glad you asked. Yes, because obviously this is key. To my ongoing survival, and obviously there are, I do need to be able to buy batteries for the alarm clock, of course. So in order to do that, to finance all of this, I've charged the princely sum of £2.99 a month.
£2.99.
Yes.
Is that all?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's actually less than a bag of Sprouts.
It's probably less than a copy of the FT.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. There you go. Exactly. Yes. Well, that's even more relevant.
And what would you, of all the newspapers that you read on a daily basis, what's your favourite?
FT.
It is.
Absolutely. No question about it. I think it's the best newspaper in the world. Again, no one's paid me to say that. I just think, there's a reason why I choose all of the newspapers I've chosen, and I have discarded newspapers as well that I used to use at the beginning as well, just because I don't think they're good enough. So I think that the ones I think FT absolutely brilliant because it's very tightly written. I think it's generally, tries to give a relatively neutral view of things. So I think that's very fair on that point. I think the Times and the Tory graph are kind of, similar. They're good, and sometimes actually cross-reference them to see what the differences are, because they tend to be quite similar. Guardian for a bit of, for a bit of a different point of view, and Wall Street Journal is great. But I think that it definitely has biases.
Yes,
I think definitely. If, for instance, if you wanted to find a negative, something that a negative about, if Elon Musk was feeling a bit too full of himself one day, all he needs to do is to pick up the Wall Street Journal, and that'll bring him down a peg or two. But that's a historical thing, I think. So yeah, but I think their articles are very good, but they are quite long.
I should add for our non-UK listeners, when Peter says Tory graph, he's referring to the Daily Telegraph. Yes. And its sympathy to the Conservative Party here in the UK. Yeah. Don't go looking for the Tory graph.
No, that's all right. Yes, fair enough. Yeah, sorry. Yes.
So where can we sign up?
So you can go onto the Armchair Trader. You will see a subscribe button there. So you can go through that way. There are other ways, but
let's name them.
Well, no. So you could go directly to me. So on watsonsdaily.com. But yeah, either way is good.
Michael mentioned previously that you have been doing like a tour of the UK or going to universities. Is that something?
Yeah, that's correct.
You've been doing?
Yes. So what I've been doing at these universities is talking about, the buzz phrase at the moment is commercial awareness. So the thing there is that there is a feeling amongst a lot of companies that when graduates interview with them and or join them, they feel that there is a lack of commercial awareness. And that they don't really realise where their company fits in with the whole scheme of things and how things are done, and I think that it is very relevant because also I've been a headhunter myself, and I've been so frustrated when I've met with someone who looks fantastic on paper, A stars all over the place, firsts, good universities. And then you ask them a really quite basic question, and they don't know what's going on, and I find it very frustrating, very disappointing. And actually, that frustration, that's why I started doing Watson's Daily, because I thought, God, I've got to do something about this, because and I can use my experience to be able to help people. So that's how I started the thing in the first place. But anyway, yeah, the thing that I've been doing recently is talk to a lot of universities and showing people how to try to increase their commercial awareness and up their knowledge, because it's very, very difficult, in the sense it's very difficult to know where to start, especially if you're a young person, university, all you've been thinking about is getting the grades and graduating, and then you think, I don't know what's going on in the economy, but where do I start? So, yeah.
And you will get asked about that. I mean,
absolutely.
I remember my first interviews for a job in financial media. I was specifically asked about the Japanese economy, which was topical at the time. That's quite some time ago now.
Yeah.
But it was in the early 90s,
yeah.
and the wheels had just come off the Japanese economy. And I went. I mean, admittedly, it was for a job as a journalist, but I was asked quite a few questions about what was going on in the Asia economics and geopolitical scene.
I think it's so important to know these things, especially. This is going to sound cheesy, so you might want some wine with this. But I do think that in this age of, I can't believe I'm rolling my own eyes.
Social media.
But I'm saying the globalisation, today's globalisation. Everyone, we're all part of the global village. But it is though. You can't exist in isolation, and I think that. Now more than ever, I think that it really helps people not only for their own general knowledge to be able to be cognizant of what's going on around them, but also for their own career development. I mean, things are changing so quickly at the moment in so many industries that if you just carry on, you go in, you clock it. Well, no, you don't clock in, do you? But so if you're 9 to 5 or whatever. And you just keep your head down, the chances are your industry could be finished. I mean, look at these people at Honda in Swindon. I mean, I've been there. I've been there to Honda in Swindon. In my previous life as a stockbroker, and took load of investors and things down there, and it was amazing. It was a huge place, and you can tell. It has a huge impact on the surrounding area, and yet a lot of these people have gone into work, they're doing everything right, and then they get the rug pulled from under them through absolutely no fault of their own. But like I say, if you put your head in the sand and you don't realise that ownership of cars is changing, the types of cars are changing. If you ignore that, there is a risk that you're going to be left high and dry. And so I do think it is very important to to know about what's going on around you.
I hear what you said about globalisation.
Yes.
But do you think this is a recent phenomenon, that people are less aware of what's going on, or has it always been there, but it's just become more prevalent now we've got access to so much information?
I think it's a bit of both. So I think that globalisation obviously has been around, but I think there's been so much M&A going on over the years. Industries have changed, and to the extent now, I was thinking about this the other day actually, that the expression people used to say, this is the Rolls Royce of, I don't know, Bakewell tarts or something, or whatever, toothbrushes. Yeah. This is the Rolls Royce. You think actually you can't say that now, can you? Because Rolls Royce, well, they don't. The Rolls Royce is split up. You've got Rolls Royce Motors, which is really not doing very well at the moment, and then you've got the car division, which is owned by VW. So actually, and they are not the best in the world.
Well, Rolls Royce is no longer the Rolls Royce of vehicles.
Motoring.
Yeah. So that's the thing. But I just think that. With things like that, I mean, that's just taking a simple example where something was quite simple, it was the UK's leading company in terms of quality and standard and all that kind of thing. But now it's been broken up, and then it's been split up into different, owned by different in different countries. I think that that globalization has increased. I think that. But now people are gradually becoming more. Whereas before they just thought, globalization, they're kind of aware of it. I think now it's becoming more and more. People are realising that it is affecting them more directly.
Thanks very much indeed, Peter, for coming in. For our listeners out there, be sure to check in for another edition of the Armchair Trader podcast. You can always check in with us on a daily basis on the website, which is www.thearmchairtrader.com.